The Mysterious Case of D.B. Cooper Chapter 1. The heist begins on November 24, 1971. A man in a dark suit and tie boarded Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305 in Portland, Oregon. He was an ordinary-looking individual, appearing to be in his mid-40s, with a neatly trimmed hairstyle and a briefcase in hand. He settled into seat 18C, a window seat, and ordered a bourbon and soda from the flight attendant, a young woman named Florence Schaffner. As the plane took off, the atmosphere inside was relaxed, filled with the chatter of passengers and the hum of the engines. Little did anyone know that this flight would soon become one of the most infamous air piracy cases in history. About 30 minutes into the flight, the man handed a note to Florence as she made her rounds. At first, she thought it was just a phone number, perhaps a pickup line. But when she opened the note, her heart raced. It contained a demand for $200,000 in cash for parachutes, and a warning that he had a bomb in his briefcase. Florence returned to the man, her face pale. "What do you want me to do?" she asked, trying to maintain her composure. "Tell the pilot," he replied calmly. "We'll be landing in Seattle." Chapter 2. The Flight Crew's Dilemma. The flight crew quickly alerted the captain, William Scott, who was faced with an impossible decision. They were just 30 minutes away from Seattle, and the passengers were blissfully unaware of the danger. As the team discussed their options, the hijacker quietly observed, his demeanor unnervingly calm. As they neared Seattle, the crew relayed the demands to authorities on the ground. The FBI was notified and a tactical team prepared to respond. Meanwhile, the passengers were kept in the dark, unaware of the unfolding crisis. Once the flight landed at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, the hijacker was given the money and parachutes as promised. The authorities had hoped that he would release the passengers unharmed, but he made another demand. The plane must take off again, flying towards Mexico City, and he would only allow the passengers to leave in exchange for his safe departure. Chapter 3. The exchange. The passengers were allowed to disembark, and the FBI released them one by one, their faces a mix of confusion and fear. As they stepped onto the tarmac, they could see the police and FBI agents swarming the area, but none knew what had transpired on the flight. Once the passengers were off the plane, the hijacker instructed the remaining crew to refuel and prepare for takeoff. He was still calm, but now there was an edge of urgency in his voice. With a small army of law enforcement officers waiting outside, the plane took off again, this time with just the crew and D.B. Cooper on board. The flight path was set for Mexico City, but the hijacker had other plans. Chapter 4. The jump. About 30 minutes into the flight, Cooper instructed the crew to lower the plane's altitude and slow down. He then handed a note to the flight attendant, instructing her to stay in the cockpit and not to interfere. With that, he opened the rear stairway door of the Boeing 727 and prepared to jump. With the plane flying at approximately 10,000 feet and in the middle of a rainstorm, Cooper leaped into the night, disappearing into the darkness. The crew had no idea if he had survived, and there was no way to confirm his fate. As soon as the plane landed back at the airport, the FBI rushed to the scene, scrambling to gather evidence and interview the crew. They found the money bag empty and the parachutes untouched, and Cooper was nowhere to be found. Chapter 5. The investigation begins. The FBI launched an extensive investigation, poring over every detail of the case. They interviewed passengers, crew members, and anyone who might have seen Cooper. They even released a composite sketch of the hijacker, which quickly made headlines across the country. As the investigation progressed, the FBI discovered a few peculiar details. First, Cooper had used the alias Dan Cooper, a name that had been misreported in the media as D.B. Cooper. Second, there were no substantial leads on his identity or whereabouts, and the trail quickly went cold. The case gained national attention, captivating the public's imagination. Stories of the mysterious hijacker spread like wildfire, and theories about Cooper's fate began to emerge. Some believed he had perished in the jump. while others speculated that he survived and vanished into the night. Chapter 6. Theories and speculations. As months turned into years, the mystery deepened. The FBI received thousands of tips and leads, but none led to Cooper. Theories about his identity ranged from a disgruntled airline employee to a military parachutist. Some even suggested he had connections to organized crime. One of the more popular theories was that Cooper had planned the heist meticulously, having knowledge of the terrain and weather conditions. The fact that he had chosen to jump in a rainstorm suggested he was experienced and prepared. But who was he? In 1972, the FBI released a list of suspects, including a man named Robert Rackstraw, a former paratrooper with a criminal history. However, despite being a person of interest, he was never charged. Chapter 7. The breakthrough. In 1978, a significant breakthrough occurred when a young boy discovered a decaying package while playing along the Columbia River. It was part of the ransom money with serial numbers that matched those given to Cooper. The discovery reignited interest in the case, and the FBI launched a renewed investigation. As they examined the evidence, they realized that the money had been buried for years, suggesting that Cooper had indeed survived and stashed it away. But where was he now? The case continued to baffle authorities and amateur sleuths alike. Documentaries, books, and podcasts sprung up around the mystery, each trying to piece together the puzzle. The public became enthralled with the idea of a modern-day Robin Hood, a man who had outsmarted the system and disappeared without a trace. Chapter 8. The legacy of D.B. Cooper. The case of D.B. Cooper became a cultural phenomenon, inspiring countless theories, movies, and even songs. He became a symbol of rebellion and mystery, a figure who had managed to slip through the fingers of law enforcement. In 2016, the FBI officially closed the case, stating that they had exhausted all leads and evidence. However, the legacy of D.B. Cooper lived on, and he remained an enigmatic figure in American folklore. As the years passed, new theories continued to surface. Some believed that Cooper was still alive, living under an assumed identity, while others speculated that he had perished in the wilderness. But no one knew for sure. Chapter 9. A new lead. In 2020, a documentary aired that reignited interest in the case. It featured a team of investigators who believed they had identified D.B. Cooper through a combination of forensic analysis and eyewitness accounts. They presented compelling evidence, including a match to a known criminal who had disappeared shortly after the hijacking. The documentary sparked renewed interest in the case, and once again the public was captivated. The FBI received a flood of tips and leads, but none panned out. It seemed that the mystery of D.B. Cooper would never be solved. Chapter 10. The final chapter? Years later, in 2022, a retired FBI agent who had worked on the case revealed a shocking twist. He claimed that he had uncovered a hidden stash of evidence that had been overlooked for decades. The evidence included a detailed confession from a man who had claimed to be D.B. Cooper, along with a series of photographs that depicted the hijacking. The agent's revelation reignited the debate over Cooper's identity and the circumstances surrounding the hijacking. The evidence was compelling, but it raised more questions than answers. Who was this man, and why did he choose to confess only now? As the world waited for answers, the legend of D.B. Cooper continued to thrive. He remained an unsolved mystery, a figure who had captured the imagination of an entire generation. Conclusion. The mystery lives on. The case of D.B. Cooper is one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American history. Despite the efforts of law enforcement, countless theories, and the passage of time, his identity remains shrouded in secrecy. The allure of D.B. Cooper lies not only in the mystery of his disappearance but also in the audacity of his crime. He was a man who took to the skies, defied the odds, and vanished into thin air, leaving behind a legacy that continues to captivate and intrigue. As long as there are questions without answers, the mystery of D.B. Cooper will persist, a testament to the enigmatic nature of human ambition and the thrill of the unknown.